Now, at the age of 92, what would you be doing? Africa has a country where someone feels at 92 they want to be a president, not for the first time, not for the second time, but for the 8th time. Imagine that. President Paul Biya of Cameroon has announced that he wants to run again as president of Cameroon. And my question is, do you want to tell me in Cameroon there's absolutely nobody else who wants to be president? Okay, fine, they may not want. Do you want to tell me nobody else can lead that country? I feel like sometimes Africans, we need to get serious. Let other people lead. You can't just be you all the time. Anyway, the Cameroon is scheduled to have an election on the 12th of October, 2025. And the world's oldest, actually he's the oldest head of state that's living, Paul Biya, who's 92, has said he will run once more for election. And this is aiming to extend his 43 years in power. This guy has been in power since 1982. And to date, he's still in power and still wants to accumulate more power. I don't know how much more power he wants. So in a tweet, he sent out a message saying, "Rest assured that my determination to serve you matches the urgency of the challenges we face." A guy who's 92, you want to tell me understands what the challenges of African young people face who are 19, 20, because the median age across Africa is 19, 20. So a guy at 92 says he understands that. And you want to tell me the people of Cameroon agree with that? No, I think Africa, we need to get serious. And if these old people can't get serious, then the youth need to get serious and get them out. So Biya said that his decision to go for an 8th term came after numerous and insistent calls by people from all regions in Cameroon and the diaspora. You know, I cannot believe that, number one. I don't trust that it's true, number two. And I think this guy is just selfish and imagines that he's the alpha and omega of Cameroon, and so he must lead. And my question to the youth of Cameroon and even the, older generation, not the ones at 92, maybe people at 40, 50, what are you doing? Why do you want a 92-year-old to lead you? Lead you to where? At 92, he has very few years to live. So why would you want someone at 92 to be your leader? Like, what's the vision at 92 you have, except reliving memories? So this guy will be living in the 80s and you're in 2025, and hence why you will see very minimal development across such nations. So Biya's administration, of course, has faced criticism of corruption, embezzlement of funds, bad governance, failure to tackle insecurity, and there have also been concerns about his health and ability to govern. Again, I ask, a man at the age of 92, why do you imagine you can carry the vision of a country at 92? I mean, and this is the same Africa we had Nelson Mandela, who served for one term and said, it's enough, let someone else move. Because countries need fresh minds. Countries need people who have new ideas. Countries need also to experiment the visions of different people. But this guy has decided, no, even with the criticism, he still wants to be there. And remember, sometimes last year, we stayed away from the public for more than 6 weeks. And during that period, actually, there were speculations that he was dead. Well, he showed up after to prove that he wasn't dead. But that tells you this guy had a health issue. For a president to disappear for 6 weeks from the public, that means something is wrong. So why is a guy who's ailing in his 90s still convinced that he wants to be in power? What is he so scared of? Probably he knows he's led Cameroon to the worst, and maybe he will face the law. And so to avoid that, you accumulate wealth and power to ensure that you maintain the status quo. So Biya has never lost an election since taking power in 1982. And if this term that he wants to run in October, if he wins another, and in Cameroon it's 7, the terms are 7 years. Presidential terms run for 7 years. So if he wins this term, he could be president until the age of 100 years. Bro, you're 92. You want another 7 years of... At 92, I want to imagine you should be hanging around with your grandkids and great-grandkids and telling stories and just being an eminent person who can share ideas of how to transform a country with the younger people, and maybe even be a consultant to the people leading the country. But this guy doesn't want that. And that tells you, if I ask you what you know positive about Cameroon, how many of you would mention good things? Of course, many of them are non-existent. I mean, there are a few good things that exist, but generally, it doesn't appear like the top 5, top 10 countries across Africa. So that tells you a lot about his leadership and where he has taken this country for the last 40 years. And he still insists he wants to be the one. So despite that, there have been growing calls from inside and outside Cameroon for him to step aside and give away for fresh leadership in the Central African nation. But of course, Biya is like, no. His candidacy follows a recent political divorce with some key allies who are now part of the opposition. These are guys who helped him rise to power in 2018. But now I think they've also gotten to a point they're like, no, we can't just have one person. We've helped him secure votes, we've pushed him, but the agenda is not working. Number two, I'm not saying this opposition guys, like the two famous people. There's a prominent minister called Issa Chiroma Bakari and a former Prime Minister Bello Buba. I mean, they recently quit the ruling coalition and separately announced plans to run the election. I mean, I'm not saying these guys will be the best, but I think because they've also been part of the system, maybe Cameroon needs to look for new people. And this is something I think almost all countries across Africa are facing, be it in the Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, the West Africa, now Central. It's a common problem among us. And I think as Africans, especially the young people, we need to rise to the occasion and fight for good leadership, and not just fight for it by going to the streets, presenting ourselves as young people to lead the country, because most of the people the founding fathers of African nations, they were not old people. They were young at their age when they started agitating for leadership and independence. And so now it's time for African nations to agitate for economic independence. And for us to do that, I want to believe we understand the situation we are in as young people. The young people of Cameroon, I know you understand yourselves and your struggles better than these guys who are in their 90s, 80s, So present yourselves and look for better leadership. However, members of the governing Cameroon, the party, it's called People's Democratic Movement. And of course, when you're in power, you have other supporters. They have since last year publicly called for Biya to seek another term, which begs the question. I mean, even if you belong to a party, why do you want to believe in a party that someone who's 92 is the only person who can lead? Even you being a member of that party, you do not see anything wrong with that. Okay, ignore other people. Maybe you don't think Biya is maybe even senile at that age? Maybe he's forgetting things. That's why he never fixes an economy. I mean, I think we need to do better as a continent. And for the people of Cameroon, I wish you the very best. I hope you can make better decisions. Of course, he has a say because he's the de facto leader of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement. But even that, I mean, if the people came together, if they rise together and put themselves in teams that believe in better leadership, I want to believe they can do that. Remember, Biya abolished term limits in 2008, and he did this, of course, to enable himself to seek presidency indefinitely. So that's why at 92, he can easily say he's running, and because there are no term limits, nothing much can be done. But I want to believe people have more power than the systems that have been entrenched. So if the people of Cameroon decide to stand up for themselves, they will definitely experience the change they need. In 2018, Biya won elections with more than 71% of the votes, although opposition groups accused the process of widespread irregularities. And this is common. I think it's just an African problem. And every time I think about it, I think Africa is more of a village, because if you come to Kenya, we have the same problem. If you go to Uganda, same issues are raised. If you go to, Tanzania, the same problems. And it's interesting that Africa has elections across several countries this year, but for Cameroon, I think you're surprising us at 92. I think the other close person who can fit that is the Ugandan president, but he's also not 92. But still, even for our neighbors who are Ugandans, we're still like, no, you can't have an old man leading you. You need better young people with better visionary leaders who are young. So opposition leaders, of course, to date in Cameroon still criticize Biya for stifling the economy. I think this, again, is an African problem. Social development with the country's current facing cost of living crisis. And he's been accused of electoral fraud. So even now, as they head to an election, it's still a problem in Cameroon. But again, to the people of Cameroon, we are sending our hearts and vision to you. If you are still not convinced, I think look at Kenya, see what has been going on, and see how better you can implement it, because you can do better. You can just don't have a 92-year-old person leading you, as in because he has no vision. In fact, the mean age, let me just Google something, mean age in Cameroon, just so you know how bad it is. Yeah, I told you. In fact, it's lower than in Kenya, it's 19. The median age in Cameroon is 18 years. So imagine this guy is determining at 92 is trying to make a future of people who are 18. And man, this is sad. I mean, people who are 18, I don't think need people who are 92 to make decisions for them. At least if someone was 40, 50, I know they can do better. And you know, the population of Cameroon is 28 million plus. So at maybe point something. So imagine 28, out of 28 million, the average mean age is 18. And then you elect a guy who's 92. Like seriously, let's do better. Africa, it's time to stand up, it's time to think big, and it's time to do better. If you're in Cameroon, share with us in the comments section what you think. If you're African, you can also tell us what you think about this and what you feel can be done or we can do as Africans to make our countries better and even put better leadership in place for Africa to change. Thank you for watching Geopolitics 411. We'll see you on the next one. The world is fast-paced and sometimes you miss the action. What perspectives do you have? What is the truth? Is the world at war? Join me, Sarah Mwangi, as we make sense of the information overload.